8 days ago on October 21st, 99% of humanity was sleeping while something extraordinary was happening in the skies. A comet that had not been seen since the 11th century, 1,000 years ago, shone above the northwest horizon, painting the sky with a hypnotizing green glow. But while astronomers and the curious watched through telescopes, the Catholic Church knew something they did not. Padre Pío, the saint who received the stigmata of Christ, left us a specific warning about moments like this, a warning that can completely transform the spiritual protection of your family. And you probably never heard about it. What happens when the sky sends signals? What does it mean when rarely seen stars resurface after 1,000 years? Today, I'm going to reveal to you Padre Pío's forgotten warning about spiritual protection during periods of cosmic turmoil, and more importantly, the 3 practices that he insisted were absolutely essential for you and your family. Pay close attention, because the second practice involves something you probably have in your home right this moment, stored in a drawer or on a shelf. But 90% of people use it in a completely wrong way, nullifying all of its protective power. Let's start with what really happened in the sky a few days ago. Comet'S 2025. A6 Lemmon reached its peak brightness on October 21st, 8 days before the moment you're watching this video. This is not a common event. This comet follows a 1,000-year cycle. The last time it was visible from Earth was in the 11th century, during the time of St. Anselmo and the great medieval cathedrals. 1,000 years. An entire generation of civilizations was born and died without seeing it again. But there's more. That same October period brought something even rarer, a double comet event. While Lemmon dominated the northwest, Comet Swan appeared simultaneously in the opposite sky, 80 degrees away. To visualize it for you, it's as if the entire sky was marked, as if 2 invisible hands were pointing to Earth from opposite angles. Shortly after, the Orionids meteor shower began, and we have a supermoon illuminating the nights. All in October 2025, astronomers call this a coincidence. The Church knows a different language for these moments. Saint Hildegard of Bingen, a mystic of the 12th century, a woman who received direct revelations, officially recognized by the Church, wrote something extraordinary about comets in her work Scivias. When the sky sends signals of uncommon light, know that the veil between worlds becomes thin. Those who are prepared will receive protection. Those who are sleeping will receive warning through fear. Hildegard was not talking about astrology. She was talking about spiritual thresholds moments, when invisible forces become more active, when spirituality ceases to be a comfortable choice and becomes a necessity for survival. Now you might be thinking, this is 2025, this is superstition. Let me ask you a question. Why has the Catholic Church, for 2,000 years, always paid extreme attention to celestial signs? Why did Padre Pío, a modern man who lived in the 20th century and who received verified supernatural abilities, constantly speak about spiritual preparation during turbulent times? Padre Pío knew something that most modern Catholics have completely forgotten. He knew that there are period-specific times where spiritual activity increases dramatically, where the invisible forces that have always been there become closer, more active, more capable of influencing those who are unprotected. He taught that during these moments, 3 specific practices become not just recommended, but absolutely vital. 3 paths to build what he called spiritual armor, invisible protection against forces that most people don't even realize exist. The first one transformed the spiritual life of thousands of people who followed his teachings and can change the destiny of your home forever. The second, as I've already mentioned, is something you probably have in your home right now, on a shelf stored in a box, often forgotten or used incorrectly. And the third? The third is so powerful that Padre Pío considered it impossible for anyone to remain truly spiritually unprotected if they practiced it with sincerity. But before revealing them, I need to prepare you with the correct understanding. Because it's not just about doing things, it's about understanding why you're doing them. It's about grasping the real power behind each practice. It's about becoming someone who not only follows instructions, but who understands the invisible spiritual mechanism that protects you and those you love. This is what Padre Pío desperately wanted Catholics to understand. It's not enough to have vague faith. You need knowledge, you need practice, you need intention, and you need to do this now, during this rare moment when the veil between worlds is thin, during this October 2025, when the celestial signs tell us that something important is happening. In the next segment, I'm going to reveal Father Pío's 3 practices with exact detail. I'm going to show you exactly how to implement them. I'm going to show you the mistakes that 90% of people make that render these practices ineffective. And I'm going to give you something even more valuable, the understanding of why these practices work and how you'll know that they're working in your life. But first, there's a crucial question you need to answer for yourself. Are you willing to be part of the 1% who truly understand? Or will you be part of the 99% who completely ignore a warning that Father Pío left specifically for times like now? The choice is yours. And if you believe that this warning reached you for a reason, leave a comment right now with the word protected, because the decision you make in this moment can completely transform the spiritual protection of your family. So if you really want to protect your family and your home in the face of what's coming, it's time to move from theory into practice. The first practice, the crucifix placement protocol, is exactly that, a protocol. Many people have a crucifix in their home, but they don't know that its position, its blessing, and its intention make all the difference. Father Pío didn't just recommend the crucifix, he venerated it as one of the most powerful spiritual weapons against darkness. He himself kept a crucifix on his chest every night, blessed and consecrated through prayer. Here's what you need to do. First, obtain a crucifix. It can be anyone, but let it be made of quality material. Next, bless it personally. You can do this on your knees, placing your hands on the crucifix and asking Jesus Christ to bless it and protect your home. It doesn't need to be a complicated prayer. Something simple like, Lord Jesus, bless this crucifix so that it may be protection against all evil that wants to enter this house. By your cross, by your passion, by your death and resurrection, protect us always. Now, where should you place it? The answer might surprise you. Not on the living room wall for visitors to see. It's in the bedroom, preferably above the bed, so it's the first thing you see when you wake up and the last thing you see before you fall asleep. This is the technique that Padre Pío taught. The crucifix in the bedroom creates a spiritual shield while you sleep, when your defenses are at their lowest. Many people sleep in spiritually unprotected environments without even knowing it. Placing the crucifix in the living room is good, but leaving the bedroom unprotected is a grave mistake. It's like locking the front door while leaving the bedroom window open. But this is only the foundation. The second practice is the one that most people resist doing, and that's exactly why it's so powerful. The holy water ritual for blessing your home. Holy water is not just water that a priest blessed during a ceremony. It's water that has been consecrated with the explicit intention to repel evil. Padre Pío said that holy water is like a sacramental weapon. It carries the blessing and the power of Christ against any malevolent force that tries to approach. Here's how to do this correctly. First, obtain holy water. You can get it from any Catholic church. If you don't have easy access, many priests will bless water in your home. Second, store it in a small glass bottle and keep it in a visible place, like the entrance to your home. Third, daily dip your finger in holy water and trace the sign of the cross on the window sills of your bedroom and living room. As you do this, pray, by sacred water, by the power of Christ, let all malevolent force be kept away from this house. When you go to bed at night, take some holy water and trace the sign of the cross on your front door. This creates a spiritual seal. It's not superstition, it's sacrament, the literal application of the spiritual power that Christ delegated to the church. Many people do this once and expect it to work forever, but it doesn't. The holy water ritual must be repeated, especially during moments of spiritual tension, when you feel your house has a heavy energy, or when you have recurring nightmares. Padre Pío emphasized that consistency is more important than intensity. A person who applies holy water every day with simple faith is far more protected than someone who performs an elaborate ceremony just once. The third practice, and listen carefully, is the most powerful, but it's also the one that most people neglect. This practice is regular confession and sacramental communion. Understand, confession is not just admitting guilt. It's an act of spiritual alignment. When you confess, you are literally removing the invisible chains that evil uses to bind you. Padre Pío dedicated his life to confession. He knew that this sacrament was more powerful than any prayer, any ritual, any practice. Here's how to implement this. Go to confession once a week, not just at Easter or Christmas. If this seems excessive, understand why. You feed your body every day, don't you? You also need to feed your soul. Weekly confession washes away the spiritual residue that accumulates, the little angers at work, impatience with family, moments of temptation. All these things create cracks in your spiritual defense. I dare say that a person who confesses and receives communion weekly is practically spiritually untouchable. Not because they're perfect, but because they're constantly sealing their soul with sacramental grace. Listen carefully. I don't have time for confession. This is what people say, and that's exactly why they're vulnerable. If you truly believe that evil exists, that malevolent forces are real, that spiritual tension matters, then you have to make time. 1 hour a week for confession is a small price to pay for the spiritual shield you gain. Padre Pío frequently spent hours hearing confessions because he knew that confessing is transformative. Now let me share with you real stories, because numbers and theories matter less than living examples. Meet Mary, a teacher who began noticing an oppressive feeling in her house. Her children had frequent nightmares. She felt constantly anxious, and there was unexplained tension in the air. One day, she spoke with a priest about this, and he asked, "Do you have a crucifix in your bedroom? Do you put holy water on the windows? Do you go to confession?" The answer to all three questions was no. Mary started the protocol. In the first month alone, just with the crucifix above the bed and holy water on the windows, the atmosphere transformed. Her children slept better. Her anxiety decreased. In the second month, she began confessing weekly. Today, years later, she describes her house as having a peace she cannot describe. And she makes a point of explaining to any guest who asks why the crucifix and holy water are there. Or consider Michael, a man who described himself as a lukewarm Catholic. He believed, but didn't practice. He had a turbulent life, struggling relationships, and a constant sense of emptiness. One day, at 42, he decided to experiment with what Padre Pío taught. He started with weekly confession, every Saturday afternoon, same time. He receives communion every Sunday. He placed a crucifix in his bedroom and blessed his house with holy water. His transformation was not instant magic, but over the course of a year, his relationships improved, his work prospered, and most importantly, he described an alignment with something greater that changed everything. He no longer resisted life, he embraced it with purpose. And he attributes this directly to the sacraments and practices of spiritual protection. These are not stories of coincidence. They are examples of a documented pattern. When people practice these three essentials, blessed crucifix, holy water, confession, and regular communion, their lives transform. Peace replaces anxiety. Protection displaces vulnerability. But here is where most spiritual teachings fall short, and why this matters so deeply. Until now, I have taught you defensive practices. This is good. It is necessary, but it is not sufficient. Because you see, these practices are like building walls around your house. They are essential, but if you do not understand why the walls are necessary, if you do not understand the spiritual war that is already happening, then you will build the walls passively, weakly, without true conviction. The comet itself is not the danger. What it represents is a dimension of reality that many deny or ignore entirely, a spiritual battle constantly occurring, invisible to our eyes, but profoundly real in its consequences. And this is exactly what you need to understand before anything else, because it changes everything. The truth about this battle, the enemy's strategy, and how you are being targeted, even if you don't know it, is what the third segment will reveal. But that, my dear, is a story for the next part. For now, begin. Place the crucifix above your bed. Get holy water. Schedule your first confession. The comet is a sign, not a threat. It reveals the spiritual battle that has always been present, but that often remains invisible to our eyes. The Catholic Church teaches with unmistakable clarity that we live in a real conflict. It is not metaphor, it is not poetry. It is a spiritual reality, as tangible as the air we breathe. St. Augustine wrote of legions of demons operating continuously throughout the world. Padre Pío, with his direct encounters with demonic forces, confirmed this repeatedly. He did not merely believe in spiritual warfare, he lived it personally, in body and soul. Therefore, the practices we discussed are not superstition. They are not relics of an ignorant past. They are spiritual armor. They are a direct response to understanding that we are engaged in an invisible war, where the weapons are not flesh and blood, but spirit and faith. Reframe everything. When you blessed your house with holy water, it was not an act of desperation. It was an act of spiritual warfare. When you receive the Eucharist, it is not merely a weekly ritual. It is a transfusion of divine power. When you go to confession, you are not simply releasing guilt. You are reclaiming lost territory in the battle. This changes everything about how you live. Now you understand why 99% of people ignore these signs. It is not coincidence. It is the enemy's strategy. Inattention is his most effective weapon. Rationalization is his second weapon. Complacency is his third. Consider the strategy. If you can keep 99% of people distracted, consumed by social media, by petty conflicts, by fleeting desires, they never look up at the sky. They never notice the comet. More importantly, they never build their armor. They remain unprotected, and the unprotected are exactly what the enemy seeks. Padre Pío frequently warned of spiritual blindness. He said the demon thrives in shadow, in indifference, in the absence of vigilance. The enemy's greatest trick is not overt temptation. It is apathy. It is convincing you that none of this matters, that you are safe when you are truly exposed. This is the devastating contrast. 99% lives in voluntary blindness. 1% understands reality. 1% arms itself. 1% acts. But there is something that changes this dynamic completely. We are in 2025. This is no accident. This is the Jubilee year, proclaimed by the Church as Pilgrims of Hope, a year of special graces, a year when the doors of divine mercy open in extraordinary ways, a year that calls for vigilance, return, and spiritual preparation. And in this context, the comet appears. It is not a cosmic threat. It is a divine invitation. God's wrath always comes with mercy. Always there is a period of warning. Always there is an opportunity to respond. The comet is that warning. It is God's hand on your shoulder saying, look, there is more in heaven and earth than you imagine. There is a reality you have neglected. Now is your chance to return. This is not fear, it is love. God does not send signs to terrorize. He sends them to save. The word mercy itself, from Latin misericordia, means the heart moved by suffering. God sees your spiritual vulnerability and responds not with punishment, but with a call, with a warning, with the opportunity to prepare. Padre Pío understood deeply God's protective love. Despite his terrible encounters with demons, he never preached despair. He preached love and trust. He taught that each sacramental, each prayer, each confession was an embrace of divine protection, not defense against danger, but response to a father's love, to a father who refuses to see his children unprotected. This change of perspective, from fear to gratitude, is what transforms everything. Now, you don't pray with anxiety. You pray with recognition. You don't bless your house with panic. You bless it with gratitude for the warning. You don't go to confession fleeing from the enemy. You go running toward the Father. You don't use sacramentals as a desperate talisman. You use them as an expression of confident love. And that is the true armor, because the strongest protection is never the one that comes from fear. It's the one that comes from love. When you act out of love for God, out of gratitude for life, out of trust in His mercy, that is real invulnerability. The devil has power over frightened flesh. He has no power over a heart that loves. So here's what changes now that you understand. You don't go back to your normal life. You enter a radically different life. A life of conscious spiritual vigilance. A life of daily armor. St. Augustine said, "The life of a Christian is a battle." Father Pío lived that literally, but he also discovered the victory. Victory through the sacraments, through prayer, through fidelity to the gospel. That is your life now. Not out of fear, out of conviction. Not tomorrow, today, holy water in your room. A blessed crucifix around your neck or on your wall. Confession scheduled, not for next month, but for this week. Morning prayer before you even check your phone. Evening prayer with your family gathered. That is the complete synthesis. The comet reminded you of spiritual reality. You awoke to the invisible battle. You understood why the practices matter. You recognized the divine love behind the warning. Now you act. It's not spiritual paranoia. It's loving vigilance. It's not religious isolation. It's the integration of faith into every decision, every day, every moment. You are the 1% who understands. And you understand that understanding is not enough. Action is everything. So specifically starting today, first, get a crucifix blessed by a priest. This week, it's not superstition. It's a tangible reminder of who you are and who protects you. That small crucifix will be your anchor when the world tries to pull you down. Second, get holy water. Go to your parish today or tomorrow. Bless your room. Bless your bed. Bless the entrances of your home. It's not magic. It's consecration. It's marking your space as territory of prayer, of divine protection. Third, confession within 7 days. Not next month, 7 days. That is the deep cleansing your spirit needs. That is reclaiming ground that may have been lost. That is starting this new life completely clean. Fourth, share this video with someone you love. Someone you know needs this warning, this understanding, this hope. Because the 1% grows when it communicates. When you share truth, you multiply protection. And as you act, I want to hear from you. Type "protected" in the comments. It's not just a word. It's a public declaration of commitment. It's you telling the spiritual universe, your community, yourself, I choose to understand. I choose to act. I choose the armor. Because when you post this, you become accountable. And accountability is power. Subscribe to this channel. Because spiritual vigilance is not a single video. It's a continuous journey. Each week, we'll explore more about this invisible battle, about the practices that work, about Father Pío's teachings that saved lives. Each video is a strengthening of your defenses. Give it a like, because when you say yes to content that speaks truth about spiritual reality, you're part of the 1%. You're saying you understand something that 99% will never see. And remember, the comet will be visible until November. Every night you look at it, let it be your reminder. Let it be your call. Let it be the voice of God touching your shoulder saying, "See, I'm here, I warn you. I love you." Now respond, because here is the final truth that changes everything. The 99% will see a comet in the sky. They will see a spectacle of stone and ice. They'll take a selfie. They'll move on. You will see a divine invitation. You will see the hand of God offering protection. You will see an opportunity that most refused. You will see clearly why you're alive in this specific moment in 2025, the Jubilee year, when the celestial signs speak of realities that can no longer be ignored. Father Pío summed it up in one phrase that must be your North Star now. God does not abandon the one who trusts in him. Spiritual vigilance is the path to freedom. You have everything you need now. You have the knowledge. You have the evidence. You have the teachings. You have the steps. You have the promise that God protects you when you respond. The question now is simple yet absolutely demanding. Will you act? Because choosing to understand without acting is choosing to remain unprotected. It's choosing to be part of the 99% who see but don't act. You've already chosen to be different. You've already chosen to understand. So choose now to act, today, this week, this month. Because the spiritual battle doesn't wait. The devil doesn't rest, but neither does God. And when you place yourself on God's side, when you dress yourself in the spiritual armor we've discussed, when you act with the knowledge you now possess, you're not just protected, you're invulnerable. Not because evil disappears, but because you finally understand how to win. Your life begins now. Your true life. Protected, vigilant, loved, armed, and that is all you ever needed.